You're listening to the KYLO Show, and I'm your host, Danny Silk.
And I'm Brittney Serpell. The KYLO Show is a podcast where we talk about how to keep your love on no matter what, and why whole healthy families are going to save the world. And it starts right now. Hello, and welcome to the KYLO Show.
We're back. We're back and we're live.
I feel like we haven't left.
Yeah, we're live, but we're recorded. It's going to be so fun.
We're back,
Each
but we
of these
stayed.
are just different. They're different. They're live.
Yeah, and the questions that we're getting are helpful. I think it's
Real people, real time.
They're real people, all that, but it's good when I feel like questions that are going to help other people too.
It's like a conversation instead of just reading somebody's question or just hearing the question and having no context, and you can actually talk to them. So
we love that.
Yeah.
Keep it coming.
Keep it coming.
So we're talking about today how to be a better communicator.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that look like? What are some tips that we have, and how do you navigate, being clear? I have value for communication. It's in my strength. It's kind of woven in a lot of areas. So I value this greatly. So you learning it is awesome. It makes my heart happy. But I guess we got 3 kind of questions to help give you a simple framework, if we will, on how to dive into being a better communicator. The first question is this question of what is the goal of this conversation? And Ben has asked me this in conflict. He has asked me this question, and I usually huff and puff, and I'm irritated when he asks me this question because I know what my goal is right now, and it is not any of the KYLO 5.
Yeah.
And then I'm confronted with, okay, what am I going to do with this information? But another place that you can ask this question is to yourself as this dialogue's going on is, what is the goal of this? Or before you have a conversation with someone, I think this question can be utilized in different ways, but it's a really great question to help you when it comes to communication.
Yeah. And the goal could be, did I bring the KYLO 5 with me? Mm-hmm. And if you don't know what the KYLO 5 are, you have to go back and listen to
it's not too far.
2 or 3 podcasts back. But it's very much, the goal is to get the needs met of each other in this conversation, not to agree about what happened.
So we're not seeking agreement.
We're not seeking agreement. That's the fast track to a fight. Is I tell you reality. And that's another word of gaslighting. I'm gaslighting you. I tell you what happened. And the only safe place for you is in the gaslighting that I just did, which is dumb. It's just dumb. It's so disrespectful. It's so arrogant to think that only one perspective is available for this situation.
This outcome.
I am defining reality. Like, no, do not do that.
Yeah. Please
understand that you have an experience of what just happened. And that's what you're trying to communicate, your experience of what just happened. Not your experience is reality and everyone must adjust.
That's so hard for married couples because they are often seeking, where do we agree so we can move forward?
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've heard that.
I think it's hard for people with blood in them.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. You have to be married. Yeah,
I work with so many married couples that run into this. They're trying to agree on something that is just hijacking their connection and their ability to communicate. So really seeking understanding in a place that's like the ultimate goal rather than agreement.
And what are we trying to understand? We're trying to understand each other's experience and perspective and needs.
There's been lots of go back and forth with Ben and I where I'm trying to understand, why do you need this? Why is this something that you are protecting? And my questions in the early days sounded were intimidating to him, because we couldn't figure out what I need lots of information. I need to see the whole picture, and I need to be able to talk through the process, where I think maybe that's men and women in general. But that's kind of how my brain works. So the ability for him to not get discouraged or defensive or shut down when I'm asking clarifying questions, help me understand, what is it that you're needing? I don't know what this means. That's us walking through a confrontation, but communicating back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
And one of the experiences that people have when there's lots of information is, especially if there are why questions, like, well, why? Well, why? Why? Because where this is going is I will judge whether that is good or evil. And you will be judged by me at some point at the end of you answering these questions. Like, why do you need sex? Why? Why do you need sex? Huh? Why? Like, I don't know. I just do. I'm just wired like this. Like, but why? What does it do? What are you trying to get? What are you trying? So that is the danger of a series of why questions to me trying to understand you. It's more like, and so how does that make you feel? Okay. And so you feel loved and connected. Okay, well, I guess that's good. I guess I'll just give that a thumbs up, So
I approve this message.
Yeah. So, but why? What are you trying to make me do? Why? What are you trying to get from me? Why is what triggers all that defensiveness, instead of help me see you, help me understand. Because when I look at you and I go, I don't think, why do you have shoulders? Why do you have knees? Why do you have a head? Why? That would never be, it wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Because I'm just seeing you. I'm not questioning you.
Oh, it's good to clarify. I think that's, again, going back to this question, feels like it gets to be used in different spaces as you practice it. What's the goal of this conversation? Like I said, Ben's used it on me, and even the personal reflection of before going in, and I used a lot more, what's the goal of this conversation, so that I can get my heart and my mind in the right spot before I go into confrontation. Because otherwise if I don't, I've heard this phrase that stop, challenge, and choose. It's kind of like that moment. Like, I'm going to just pause, ask this questions. I'm going to challenge my motives, and then I'm going to choose what I'm going to do. Maybe right now it's not the best time, because I want to make sure that my goal is connection and it's pursuing understanding rather than agreement.
And it's so hard to get out of trying to convince somebody to agree with you.
Sure.
It's just such a terrible goal. It's just going to it's going to put you on the reef. Because if this doesn't go well, which means you don't convince them, you have an argument.
Yeah. Well, you want to do that. Arguments they don't usually produce respectful communication. So don't do that. Another question is, and you kind of alluded to this a little bit, was, what do I need? And am I communicating what I need? So, more and more, Ben and I both, with coaching, are running into people having a hard time figuring out what it is that I need, then to communicate what I need. I need you to not be a jerk. That's what kind of comes out. And you're like, okay, let's try that again. But there's an experience that they're having, and they don't want to feel bullied or whatever's going on, but they don't know how to say it without that judgment. So how do we get to pulling that apart a bit better?
Well, I'd probably lead with how I'm currently experiencing this, and that's how I'm feeling. So I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling disconnected. I'm feeling rejected. I'm feeling punished. I'm feeling lonely. This is me stepping into the light, letting you see me, and me taking responsibility for me, and me not blaming it on anybody, and me not accusing anybody of trying to do something to me. I'm not a victim. I'm showing you my experience. So the way I like to set that up is, if you're at a nice restaurant and the chef comes out and says, "How was your meal?" He's asking you, "How are you feeling? How did you experience what I did?" And you say, you don't know how to salt food, and you don't know how to cook meat, and you don't know what you're doing. You're like, whoa,
I'm
whoa,
uncomfortable
whoa.
at your table right now.
Whoa. Like, please help me understand your experience. Well, this is way too salty for me. I felt it was, I don't enjoy this. And this was not well done enough for me. And so he's got good information now. Like, okay, you just gave me that felt too salty and too raw. Okay. So he grabs your plate and disappears, comes back and goes, "How about this?" Why? With the information you gave him, he adjusted what he was presenting. And now he goes, "How's that?" And you go, "This is perfect." Boom. Why? Because I know you told me your experience of me. I adjusted because I want you to enjoy your experience of me.
So in your approach of giving that feedback of experiencing, how crucial is it to not make the judgment statements like,
"You're a bad cook"?
Yeah.
Versus,
"This is a bit saltier than what I would have done." I think that when I order medium rare, this was my expectation. Like, because you led with two different encounters, and the first one I was like, "Oh, if I was at your table, I would be like crawling underneath it." If Ashley was with us, she would have gone to the bathroom and not come back.
Yeah.
Like, there's two different experiences in that feedback, and your approach to it, and even how it's received.
Yeah. Well, one is a total judgment of the chef, and the other is good information about my experience. So when you start judging people, here it comes. They have two choices: be a better listener than you are a speaker, and listen past your judgments to your experience, or get defensive and now judge you.
Which is hard to have better communication if you're leaning on judgment.
Yeah, it's
in your approach to.
I think this is really classic mistake making here. Is I'll judge you, and then you get upset, and then you judge me, and I'll get upset, and then we'll say we can't communicate. You're like, "Oh no, you communicate awesome. You did a great job being disrespectful to each other."
Gold stars all around. I remember we were at lunch, our whole team, and I ordered fish. Do you remember this? I ordered and it didn't quite taste right. And the guy was like, "It's fresh. It came in today." And I'm like, "I believe you. I'm sure it's real. I don't want to get sick."
Yeah.
So I'm not really going to eat it. I mean, and they went and made an adjustment, and I didn't necessarily even ask for it. He asked, "How are you experiencing it?" Like,
how's your meal?
I don't know. Yeah. I really don't feel like puking later.
Yeah.
So, but that was the feedback, and it was good. Second round, I wasn't worried about it, but there was no judgment to, you don't know how to detect what.
And it's really how you figure out, is this a me problem? Is this a you problem? Is this a us problem? Because as soon as I start hearing myself say, "I don't like this way," I start to realize, oh, this is me. This isn't you did a bad job. This is maybe information you don't have, which is I like it different than you're bringing it. This is why communication in relationships, in sex, in parenting, in money is so important, because I can't read your mind.
Yeah.
So if you don't do a good job of letting me see how you're experiencing the way we're spending money, the way we're dealing with this child, the way we're intimate together. If we don't have communication around that, there'll be no helpful adjustments made, and it'll just continue in that experience for way too long until you finally say something, but it's you still judgmental.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Okay, the third question, it says, am I communicating like a powerful person or a powerless person? Now, a lot of these questions I feel like are kind of personal reflection questions more than, but you could ask them to other people. Like I think that how you're experiencing me would be very much kind of the top, and then these are kind of questions that you could ask around that. But, am I communicating like a powerful person versus a powerless person? And how do you know if you're doing that or not doing that?
I would, maybe the clue number one that you're acting powerless is you're trying to blame someone else for how you're feeling and how you're acting.
Yeah, I like that.
That's probably the right out of the gate. I mean, if you're like, if you got one of those bouncing around in your head, you've probably given away all your power. Yeah. And you're not controlling yourself anymore. And now you are going to try to control the other person. And then you're going to violate, what's the goal of our conversation? I'm going to make an agreement. You're the bad guy, aren't you? I'm the victim and you're the bad guy. Say it, say it, say it. Mm-hmm. No, that's not what's happening. Mm-hmm. You're not enjoying the experience and I don't know that yet. Yeah. Except that you're pouting and you're moping and you're irritated and you're irritable. I got all that, but I still don't know what you need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know that the communication styles has always been helpful to me, just in identifying what it is I'm normally bringing. And my powerless approach is I become the aggressive communicator. Mm-hmm. I call it my FIFO, like I'm marching around and I'm looking to blame somebody, but mine comes out aggressively.
Mm-hmm. And when you get scared.
When I get scared, and I become powerless. And I would say Ben's is a bit more passive, so he becomes as quiet as a mouse. That between the two of us,
small target.
It's dangerous. I'm the giant stomping around, and he's hiding. And that's how he becomes powerless. Is that he will avoid conflict where I'm searching for the blame. And I think passive aggressive, it feels like it can flow in between the two different styles a little bit more. And that one's got blame going at the core of it. But I think those have been helpful. But ultimately, obviously, the goal with that is that you become the assertive communicator. And that is a powerful person communicating. Yeah. That is, like we talked about, even, Jesus was really great at telling other people what he was going to do. That's the assertive communicator. That's a powerful person walking around communicating.
I know what I'm going to do with me no matter what you do with you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I have a plan, and people with a plan are powerful. Mm-hmm. People who don't have a plan are usually
a mess.
Pretty fragile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So ultimately, like these three things that we kind of went through, they're really questions. What's the goal of this conversation? What do I need? And am I communicating what I need? Am I communicating like a powerless person or a powerful person? Those are really great steps on how do I bring something better to my communication.
A little self-awareness.
Yeah. And most of this space right here is going to come from there's likely a disagreement. Mm-hmm. And you're likely jacked up with that self-preservation that's creeping in, kind of back to the KYLO 5, because we keep bringing that up. And your ability to be aware of, all right, what do I do differently? Otherwise, I'm going to keep repeating the same thing over and over again. And you're going to have the same results, which is not what I think you want by visiting us here at the KYLO Show. I think that you want to be a good communicator, a better communicator, a strong communicator. And just because you're loud doesn't mean that you're a good communicator. I think that's the other thing that a lot of people think is the loudest person in the room does not necessarily mean they are the best communicator in the room.
They're usually the scaredest.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Awesome. Wonderful. Good stuff. Hopeful that you're going to bring in some of these tools into your next disagreement and see what happens. You should let us know. Maybe submit a question, come see us, hang out.
Show up live.
That would be fun.
we could talk to you.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, remember that whole healthy families are going to save the world. So go out there and be a great communicator. We'll see you next time. And we're going to questions right after this. Hi, Renee. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks so
Hello.
much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are excited to have all of our participants for the show. It's been amazing.
Yeah.
The questions that have been coming in have been just really, really rich, and I think going to be really helpful for a lot of people. So I'm excited for your question because I'm sure it'll be the same. So are you ready, Renee, to jump in and
Sure,
give us your question?
absolutely. Well,
Great.
my question was just, how do you keep your love on when you hear a difficult disclosure from your husband, such as he was looking at porn or something else that's really sort of shocking? And how would a wife deal with that in a loving and wise way?
Well, I definitely have enough time to tell you of how I didn't do it well. We could lead with that. But I'm sure you've got some great questions for follow up.
Go ahead. You're
What not to do? You know, the panic, the anger, the punishment, the fear that kind of takes over. I think in those moments, I've walked through that a handful of times to know that it was definitely not the KYLO response. It was not the response that produced connection in a space where, you know, most of the time I didn't catch things. It was him confessing, but it still doesn't. I don't know if maybe it feels better, but it's still really painful. And I would say a lot of as I grew as a wife and different things, I remember probably the best place was really starting to ask some questions as to, so what's the problem? What's going on? What led you to this? Ouch. Yikes, that's scary. I mean, I think I learned to have fewer words and ask better questions. That was probably where I grew better at kind of leading more in the KYLO method than in the I'm reacting to my own fear. And that's what's leading me. That's what my counselor is that fear. And I feel like I need to protect myself because you are clearly not protecting me. And that's was the past. But, you know, again, when I was able to ask Ben, like, out or say, ouch, and yikes, that's scary, and ask the question, you know, what's the problem? And I would say that he didn't always know. He didn't know always, even in that moment. I think there's moments where he thought he knew what it was. And I'd say, what are you going to do about that? Because I don't really want to be here again. And there was a pattern that we had to walk through. You know, even with, you know, traveling on the road, there was a pattern of, you know, him going to that and me having to figure out, how am I going to feel safe when I'm out here doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And in the back of my mind is this painful, almost haunting, is he doing it at home? You know, I'm texting you late, so I feel like I'm connected to you to try and, you know, control you from afar, which is ridiculous because that's clearly not going to work. But we had to walk through figuring out what the problem was, and really Ben did. And I had to walk through keeping my love on and not wanting to punish him or have blood, because that's kind of my personality a little bit. So I wanted to punish, that's for sure. And so, I mean, have you asked any of those questions to him?
A few, but I've also not done. I've also gone like the fear, terror way that didn't bring anything good. But a few questions came out that were more connective and all.
Well, that's good. That's probably the place where your job is to figure out how to not become his judge and punisher. And your job is to keep on display that's painful and I'm scared, and how are you going to protect my heart? And what are you going to do to protect my heart? And, you know, there's moments where I said, I don't know that I believe you, because here we are again. What's going to be different this time? And, I think I don't know, I'm not a dude, clearly, but I think that every guy's need around porn can be different. I know that walking with Ben and a lot of couples that we've worked with, it's some need for control. That's kind of what we found, was Ben was looking for control and he felt pretty out of control. And earlier days of our marriage, it was because I was the controlling beast in the house. Later years in marriage, I wasn't. It was Ben's internal world that was out of control, and I had actually nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Renee, I would say that he has something to work on, and you just want to do everything you can to make sure it's not you. I don't want you working on me. I want you working on you. I'll work on me. And I'm hurt and I'm scared and I need to feel protected and I need to figure that out. You, on the other hand, need to figure out why you would do something that's so hurtful to me, is so scary to me, and why you wouldn't protect me from that. Because if somebody came in the house in the middle of the night, you'd get out of bed and you'd go deal with it. You wouldn't push me down the stairs and say, honey, go find out who and what's in the house. So his role as a man is in jeopardy. He knows he's not protecting you from this, and he knows that he's not loving you. He knows that. That erodes him as a man. And if it doesn't, then he's even more broken than he knows. But you can hold that up to him and say, I need to feel protected from this destructive thing you've let in our house. I need to feel loved. And part of the way I feel loved is you protect me and you protect our connection, and you learn how to communicate with me. You learn how to be honest with me. You learn how to be brave and show up in hard conversations. I need that from you. I need to know you're going to love me like that, and you're going to protect me from that. And that, however you communicate that, make that the issue, not that he's some reprobate that is, immoral and is, just a scumbag. Like, okay, he already feels ashamed. What he really needs, he needs for you to call out the protector and the lover in him by showing him that you've been hurt, you feel disconnected, and you need to feel protected.
Wow. That's good. Amen.
Yeah. Well, I think your question is actually very real to a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. This epidemic in this world.
Yeah. And so your bravery to be willing to ask it, as you navigate and want to do a good job of it is admirable. And I think that's the goal, is that we need more people that are willing to say, I'm going to choose connection, even though I'm dripping in fear. And I think for women, we feel rejected and undesired pretty quickly in that when we hear about this. And so it's us climbing out of our own insecurities and choosing, I'm going to protect this covenant and I'm going to go in there. And so
that's good. Job. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your question, Renee. That was great.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Thanks for joining us today. Right,
Bless you.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you go to lovingonpurpose.com and sign up for our emails to stay connected about upcoming episodes and how to ask your questions live. Never miss an episode of The KYLO Show by subscribing to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch us on Loving on Purpose YouTube channel.
And don't forget, whole healthy families are going to save the world. See you next time.